Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, pada siang hari ini saya diterima di rumahnya Ibu Lina dan juga Ustadz Tom.
No, thank you.
Ya, rumahnya sangat besar, sangat indah. Alhamdulillah, ini di daerah Bogor ya, saudara Sentul Bogor. Saya datang ke sini karena mau menyelesaikan yang belum dibicarakan pada waktu itu ya. Last time we have the podcast with
Yes.
Pak Gordon, and I don't have much time to interview you.
Yeah. It was spontaneous.
Spontaneous. So now I want to do that.
Yes.
Ya, oke?
Yes,
Bismillah
please.
ya. Nah, jadi pada hari ini saya nanti akan menginterogasi beliau gitu. So your name, your complete name is Thomas, right?
Yes, I go by Tom though.
Why not Thomas? Thomas is so Christian.
Well, I don't know why you'd say it's Christian.
It doesn't sound American.
It's one of the disciples of Jesus in the Bible.
I have no idea.
You have no
I have
idea.
no idea.
So you were born as what? Christians? I mean, your family is a Christian or what?
Well, you could say they're Christian, but not really strong
Okay.
Christian. And I didn't grow up in a house that was going to church. And I don't know why. You know, it's not something I ever questioned. Actually, I never asked.
Your parents didn't go to the church?
No.
No. So it's not a Christian family.
Not in my lifetime that I know.
Okay.
But you know, just because you don't go to church doesn't mean they didn't believe in something.
Okay.
You know, it's just they were not. You could say not practicing.
So they follow the Christianity.
It wasn't really a subject in my household. You know, later in life, you know, my mother told me stories how she went to the Catholic school.
Oh, Catholic school.
So that gave me insight that you know, that was kind of her background.
I see.
And in terms of religion being Christian, it's more of a social construct. It's more of a social thing, not really using the name of Jesus or even God much. You know, in America, sometimes people use the word God in their everyday phrases.
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Oh my
Jesus
God.
Christ.
Yeah, so that's a swear word in the U.S.
Square word.
Yeah, it's a bad word.
Religion, yeah.
But those are just phrases. They're not really any indication of a religion.
Used as an idiom, right?
Yeah, I guess that might be correct. Yeah.
So you grew up not as a Christian.
No. You know, you could say, I think you asked me one time, and basically I grew up as an atheist. Basically a non-believer in a higher power. And I can relate this back to when I was very young, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And at that time, you know, I realized this was around Christmas time. And I started to get smart. And I started to realize...
What do you mean?
I realized there's no Santa Claus.
I
I came up with this theory. Yeah,
Okay.
I came up with this theory that there wasn't a Santa Claus because on the TV they said Santa Claus came down through the chimney and gave us presents. And I realized we didn't have a chimney. We didn't have a fireplace. And I started wondering, how does Santa
Coming through
Claus...
window.
Yeah, how does Santa Claus get into our house? Should we leave the door unlocked? And so I basically just honest, and I asked my mother, and I said, you know, I think I posed the question / statement. I said, there's no Santa Claus, is there? Or I asked her, is there Santa Claus? And my mother was honest and truthful, luckily. And she said, you're correct. Basically saying, I'm correct. There's no Santa Claus, but don't tell your friends.
How old were you at the time?
It was like 4 or 5 years old.
Only 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
They said he's smart.
Yeah, and you know, from that situation, from what happened there, I then drew further conclusions. If there's no Santa Claus, which is the biggest and best holiday for a kid, because you get a lot of presents.
Yes.
And then the next thing on my list, well, probably there's no Easter Bunny, because that's the second holiday where you
Okay.
get chocolate.
But your family celebrate the Christmas.
Well, yes, it's a social.
Oh, okay.
It's a social thing.
It's become weird if you don't celebrate Christmas in the neighborhood, right?
Not just, yes, it would be.
Yeah.
You'd be a little bit socially ostracized, but more than that, as a kid, who doesn't want to go out and buy the Christmas tree and have fun decorating it? And it's a social thing, and you have fun doing the holiday activity. It's the holiday activity for America. And of course, the presents. If I didn't celebrate Christmas, think of everything I would.
You wouldn't get the
No
present.
fun. There's no fun during the winter time for me. No presents. I'd be there, and you know, what am I supposed to do? So I didn't complain. I celebrated it because it's just the holiday. It's what I consider the American social holiday. So I went along with it. But as I said, from that discussion with my mother, I drew all the conclusions. There's no Easter Bunny. There's no Tooth Fairy. There's no leprechaun. There's no ghosts and vampires for Halloween. It all just, it dispelled a lot of the mythology that kids have.
Really expand leprechaun for
Yeah.
the St. Patrick Day.
Yeah. So all the holidays, all these special magical days kind of lost its magic for me.
So basically, did you go to the church or not
No.
for the whole life?
I
Never.
went into a church, I think, for the first time when I was an adult. And it was kind of just, you know, it's
Social.
just- I forget why, but yeah, I went into the church, and there's just, I don't know, it's nothing.
Your funeral.
Funeral.
Funeral, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I went in for one or more times,
Okay.
but already as an adult.
Okay.
Already, this is long past my childhood. So it was never anything. Even I didn't know what it was like inside of the church, except for I'd see TV in a movie,
Okay.
and so it wasn't something alien to me. I could see from the movies, and I had no pull to go there. There's nothing. I didn't feel like I was missing something. You know.
Okay. So you grow up, and then you, after you're older, then you still become atheist.
Still atheist.
Until?
And this is the interesting thing. Even though I said my mother, she grew up as a Catholic, but she never mentioned religion to me as a kid. So it's not even a topic in our household, except when I would go to school or I'd go to somebody else's home that would be practicing Christians, and they would go to the dinner table and they'd pray, and I'd feel like an alien. I wouldn't know why are you doing that? What am I supposed to do?
Your mother also never teach you anything about Christianity?
No, and I think she had some difficult periods in her life which took her away from organized religion.
I see.
So even though we didn't discuss it, she didn't say anything good or bad. I just grew up in what I call this modern laboratory environment. It's like kind of an atheist environment, but not communist. You know, it's just like this blank environment. We celebrated Christmas. I got, chocolate for Easter, had the eggs, the Easter bunny, all that stuff. I still got to enjoy the fun of the holidays, but there was no meaning behind it.
Only tradition.
Tradition with all the fun and none of the drawbacks, none of the requirements.
So you were atheist until you found Islam.
Yeah.
You can say that.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about, it's like, is there a God? And I'd always wonder, but I felt like there's no pull for me to go in a certain direction. And, in that time, the religions I knew about were not complete. I knew about the different versions of Christianity. I knew about a little bit about Judaism, but that's not a religion that you can join. I knew about
Hinduism
and Buddhism in some respect, but there was no real pull for me. It all kind of just got grouped in the same boat, as it just didn't make sense in one form or another.
Then how Islam pulled you?
It's a complicated story, and I can just give you, a brief overview.
Because you were from atheist,
Yes.
that doesn't believe in God.
Yes.
Suddenly you embrace Islam.
Yes. Well,
which the concept of the God is very thick. I mean,
it is. It is. It's not just thick, but there's a lot of rules that go with it. A lot of rules that we follow, and we don't say that there's something in the book that we don't follow or that's obsoleted. We don't say that. Well, it's a long time between when I was a kid and embraced Islam. When I embraced Islam, I was already in my 40s.
Oh, 40s.
Already married. And the interesting thing is, the woman I married was Muslim, but and I went in that direction. I was kind of an interest of mine. It's like, like a Muslim woman. There's something good about that.
But how you accept the concept of the God, which you never believed before for 40 years?
Well, I knew the Christian traditions of their prophets and their stories, and I would, I'd watch on the holiday times the stories on TV. Jesus and Moses, all the Christian prophets, and the story of God, and the whole thing. And it was kind of interesting Hollywood to me, and I always liked that. But I didn't really know the book version so much. All I really knew about Christianity is they kept on saying, Jesus is God, Jesus is God. And I kept on pondering that, and I see the cross, and I go, that's very weak. How it not even interests me to pursue it. And fast forward, 20 years, 25 years, and one day my wife invites me to Islam.
But before that, what do you mean by weak? Is it illogical or maybe irrational or what?
You could use those words. It didn't make any sense to me. I had Christian friends, I had Jewish friends, Catholic friends.
Muslim friend also.
Later in
Muslim
life,
friend.
I actually had a Muslim friend, but not really openly say they were Muslim. I just made a assumption, and I was polite. I didn't want to intrude upon their. In America, religion can be a very private thing, and you don't want to upset your friendship by saying too much. You keep your friendship to what seems to be mutually compatible, and if they want to talk about a subject, they want to bring it up, then it becomes open.
Okay.
But going back to me accepting Islam, as I said, my wife invited me into Islam, and that was kind of surprising at the time. But she guided me. She started explaining about Islam. It became more of a something meaningful. And as I said, I already knew the stories of the Christian and Jewish prophets through Hollywood. So I got that already, but every time they kept on associating Jesus to it as the Son of God and the whole thing, it lost me. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me. I'll just take it as a good Hollywood movie. But then, once I started, seeing a religion through Islam and knowing the Quran and how the Quran, it suddenly made sense of all the gibberish from all this other stuff that was turned into a social community thing, of everybody doing something and it not really understanding, and suddenly, the Quran, it explained everything. I mean, even though Allah says in the Quran that there are some verses that are very clear and others which are kind of vague.
Commentary.
And Allah says, well, the people that want to not really be good with the religion or take you astray, they'll fixate on the ones that are vague. And I realize that, and I try to concentrate on the things that are very clear. The Sharia. And and what I say about Islam making sense is everything. It's the Quran. They talk about Prophet Isa or Jesus, as the Christians say, peace be upon him, and it says, that those who say he's God have no knowledge of it. And of course that's true, because during his time he never called himself God.
Yeah.
He never said he had special powers of his own. And it just, everything made sense in the Quran. All the stories of the prophets, it just clarified everything. It gave them a human face, a human condition of struggling and making mistakes, and just a lot of things. It just made sense. And already being in my 40s, I could look back and see what the Quran was saying with the laws of Islam. And I look back and see, oh yeah, if we all followed this, society would be better. I can see that. Everything that happened in society, in my life, it's like, wow, I wish I had this when I was younger, and things could have been different. I could have got a start, a better start in life, instead of waiting till I'm older and finally realizing realizing I'm on the wrong path, or perhaps kind of being lost.
But sorry, Tom, what I need to know, you as an atheist,
Yes.
doesn't believe in God, and then suddenly you know Islam, and then you believe there is a God. What is the main issue that you finally believe that there is a God over your atheism?
Because the Quran convinced me.
About what? In what term? I mean, maybe in the science, or maybe in the moral, or what?
The whole thing. As I'm, reading the Quran and learning about the Quran, and, I'm watching information on YouTube to clarify things more, and I'm getting more knowledge and viewpoints. And I hear these things like, oh, the Quran proves science. Not science proved the Quran, but the Quran proves science. And then I, read in the Quran, oh yeah, it's like, yeah, that does make sense. And all these little things, they come together. And, so all these different aspects about, science and religion, and how, my perspective is the human condition as humanity. Again, I can reflect and see all during my time, humankind has been advancing in trying to become the master of its own environment, to master everything, to know everything, and in a sense, to try to become its own God. They want to create life. They want to go into a laboratory and splice together genes and make clones and all these things. And then once they do that, or can do it, or think they're doing it, they suddenly, oh, we're smart, we can create life. Or they try to do something and they come up with a new law or a new rule in their effort to perfect society. They come up with all these things, keep changing and trying different things. And it just doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, they change the rules, and then 5 or 10 years later, they change the rules again, but it's just like going in a circle, not really heading in the right place. And I see, it just all made sense. Again, the Quran, what does it say? It's very simple rules, about zina and punishment of thieves, so many things. And in America, actually in America, we have more people in jail per percentage of society than any other country. And most of that is thieves and drugs, all these typical crimes. But most of the crimes, they start at the low level. I mean, there are very few people that go into jail for a serious crime that didn't start low. Usually it starts low, stealing, and then goes up and then become murderer. And America just has this whole society. It's like a jail society in some way. It's
there is a kingdom in the jail.
It's America is not the only, but sadly, it seems the highest percentage of citizens in jail, and one of the highest crime rates in the world outside of a war zone.
I remember last time I discussed or debate with atheist, which is he is a scientist. I discussed, because he didn't believe in Quran. I said, as a scientist, do you believe that iron is not originally coming from the earth? He said, yes. Iron is coming from the sky. It's maybe from the things down from the sky. Then I asked him, then how Quran mentioned that we, a God, send you down the iron for the beneficial of human? How do you think? So Quran said that 1,400 years before. And now you said the iron is not originally from the earth. He said, yes, I know that iron is not originally from the earth, but how do you believe a man riding a horse from Mecca to Jerusalem? It means burak. So I said, burak, we still don't have the science or the answers in science. Maybe we can answer maybe in 10 years, maybe in 100 years, or maybe as about the Isra Miraj. We don't have the answers in the science yet. But maybe we will be proved in 10 years or 100 years or 1,000 years. But he believed that the iron is not coming originally from the earth. So I said, that verse in the Quran, it cannot be coming from the human. It must be coming from the Creator. I said. He just don't believe the Isra Miraj and the the flying horse. He said. Yeah.
The story of night journey.
Yeah.
The night
yeah,
journey, the Isra
yeah.
Miraj.
Yeah. I know the story, and I don't know if there was a real physical horse, was a metaphor or a magical creature. But yeah, I mean, Prophet Muhammad, he took the night journey, and we have to believe that. You know, but you know, going back to the proofs, for me, the real proofs was, you know, what I saw in society which was wrong, and the Quran had an answer, you know, concerning crime, criminals. Yeah, you cut the hand, and I mean, it sounds, you know, kind of old-fashioned, but I think there's a deterrent effect.
Yeah,
in some way.
If we can say that is the old-fashioned,
Yeah.
what you mean about the Sharia law,
Yeah.
Sharia. But if we think, if this law of Sharia implemented in US, I believe it will decrease the criminal in US very effectively.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. If you consider, you know, if you don't do these actions, you know, these types of punishments, then what they do in America, they just lock people up for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
It didn't change anything.
And what does that really do? It's like then you burden society to pay for all these facilities, and actually to lock somebody up in America costs more money than a high-paid office worker makes in a year.
Yes.
And if you take this back to older times, before what we would call modern times, you know, they couldn't do this. And so you'd issue your punishment, which was here and now, and not something delayed as like putting somebody in jail for half their life or a portion of their life. And then they get out and they just keep on doing it again. You know, and that's one portion. And then, like, you know, zina, that's another thing. You know, in the US, I grew up and I saw a lot of that behavior. And I was kind of on the outside of it. I never really partook in all these bad behaviors. I saw it from the outside. And what I saw was it never led to something good. It's always going in a bad direction. The outcomes were always weird, and you end up with a lot of women end up pregnant with no husband that want to take responsibility. And America and a lot of the Western world has a huge social problem with single mothers, abandoned.
Single parent.
And who takes care of them? Then the state has to come in, the country, and help, you know, this poor woman who can't, you know, if you have a kid, how can you work? Because in addition to that, the family is broken in America. America is all about
very common, single parent in USA.
Because the family is not together anymore. It's not the kids living with the parents who also may have the older orang tua with them, the grandparents. It's all broken now. The orang tua, they're in the retirement home, the nursing home, you know, and then the adults, they're living their separate life and they want to have fun now. And the kids, you know, they're off experimenting with free life. They don't want parents around to impose restrictions upon them. So everybody's living separate. And so how is it this young unmarried woman can take care of her kid or kids? It's a huge problem in society which the West has no solution for. But Islam has a solution. They don't allow that. You know, not to say it doesn't happen, but the rule, already the conditions are there, and they really say this is the correct thing. They don't let you experiment or find out on your own what is good and bad. The Quran already sets what is good and bad, and the Quran highly suggests that you follow this to go to the straight path and take you to Jannah.
Yeah, Tom, how long did you need to embrace Islam when you firstly hear about Islam?
A few weeks, maybe a month, to really kind of accept it.
Not month. To say, only a month.
It could have been a month to accept it.
After you read Quran.
Yeah.
You read Quran?
Yes.
In the translation?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's, accepting Islam. Now, actually being able to implement it and understanding some of the higher concepts as a complete system, that takes longer. That takes years.
How many years?
Years. It's never ending.
Never.
It's
you
never
mean to
ending.
study in Islam?
Well,
but to practice already, right?
To study, even to practice correctly. And this is something I can elaborate on more complete. As after embracing Islam, that was the difficult part. I embraced Islam. I accepted it as the truth and the logic. And now I have to change my life. It's everything has to change. And when you're living in a non-Muslim country or a non-Muslim majority country, things suddenly become more difficult. The first thing that I noticed, that changed is, the weekend comes and already I'm not working, and it's like, oh, let's go out to the restaurant. Oh, we can't go there anymore. It's not halal. Right? I mean, previous to that, I didn't really eat pork. Bobby, it's not really my thing. So that in itself was not a problem for me. It wasn't a big problem.
How about alcohol?
I never.
You also didn't drink alcohol?
Well, I did, but it was more
not a big drinker.
It wasn't important to me.
Okay.
It's not important at all. It didn't cause any problems for me.
Then what is the most difficult for you at the time?
I said the first thing I noticed was the food.
Okay.
Because
He likes to eat.
at the time.
He likes what?
He likes to eat.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of food?
Well,
is it haram food?
Well,
No, because going to the restaurant in the U.S., it's not halal, even though they don't serve pork, but it's the beef or the chicken.
Oh,
is
okay.
slaughtered.
Yeah. It, again, what I learned, it's like, well, there's that term halal, and permissible, and it's not just saying, oh, it's not food that's haram like pork. It's suddenly, well, yeah, chicken is allowed, but the chicken in America is not. It's not slaughtered correctly according to Islamic guidance to be certified as halal, because the way they typically slaughter animals in America is not in a halal way. And at first it was like, oh, because I like pizza.
Oh, okay.
And pizza has a lot of different components, so a lot of toppings. Pepperoni, sometimes chicken, different components. And so I couldn't go to my favorite pizza restaurant anymore. It became, and so it's like, oh, where can I go? It's like I become frustrated and confused, and even though I accepted Islam, but it then became difficult. That starting out, the first thing I noticed was the food, and then I have to consult with my wife and search the internet to find halal restaurants and halal pizza, and then the halal pizza is 30 kilometers away, or maybe the halal pizza is 10 kilometers away, but it's not cooked, it's frozen. I should dibungkus, take home and put it in my oven. It becomes, things changed, and you can expand upon that more and more. The food aspect of it. I just want my favorite food, the first thing I encountered. And, additional things I started to realize about is, at the, working at the office, and yeah, it's the American office. We celebrate all the Christian holidays or they don't even think of it as Christian anymore so much. They just think of it as American, holidays. And if you don't like those holidays, you're kind of not really American. That's what they would think in their mind. So, Christmas time. Oh yeah, the company is nice and generous. We have one day before the actual holiday, we would have like a gathering and have free food. But again, it's not halal food. So here I am, so then I have to pick and choose. Okay, there's salad, right? Salad is halal, meaning it's permissible. There is no slaughtering of vegetables. It's good for me. Breadsticks, it's not alive, never was alive.
How about the salad in your office? No problem.
For me at that time, I had a private office, so I could manage the salad. Yeah. So that wasn't.
No masjid near your office?
I'll explain that later. But technically, no. There's no masjid in downtown of where I lived in my city. Yeah, in the city of Seattle. There's no masjid in downtown. But yeah, eventually I worked the salat into my office routine. So that was okay. And for Friday prayers, what I eventually found out, of course, at the beginning, it's like, well, yeah, Friday, I don't know what to do. But eventually you learn, you hear things. Oh yeah, there is a Friday prayer in downtown, which I could go to. It's not too far. Being held at a church, what do you call it? Meeting room, a big meeting room. And so I guess the Muslim community, they just rent out that room for Friday prayer, and that's okay. And so I went there and I met another Mualaf there, and we exchanged stories eventually. And again, it's my search for knowledge.
Which part in USA that has the biggest Muslim community?
Virginia.
Yeah, Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. Area, metro area. That would include like Maryland and Northern Virginia. Texas.
Texas.
Around a few cities in Texas.
I see.
There is a Muslim community. Yeah.
Many mosques in Texas.
Many, and a big mosque.
I see.
And, last year, I think.
But don't assume that the big city centers have that, or even that may not even have halal food. That's another big thing. So now I should start bringing food from home all the time, because the food, where I work is not halal unless I just want to keep eating salad.
So now, can you please tell us about your fasting experience? The first fasting experience.
Fasting. Difficult.
That's very funny.
Yeah, it's
It was summertime.
Summertime.
Yeah. Well,
18 hours.
18.
My typical pattern of eating is a lot. It's like I always want a snack. Always want a snack. And so my first time, first Ramadan for me was difficult, and I don't really even remember how many days I missed.
29 days.
I don't even remember.
What? 29 days miss?
Only one day, and then that one day, when he got home,
Only one day full fasting.
I don't remember.
well, I still
Yeah.
remember. And he collapsed.
Yeah.
And
I swear I don't remember.
Okay.
But I made effort, but it was a big shock to my body.
yeah.
And, you know, in my career field, you know, it really, you know, it's very intensive. My career field, it's kind of like calm and then emergency, calm and then emergency. And so I should keep my energy level ready. It, you know, is at any moment, it's like typically on a day, you know, suddenly there's an emergency. Oh, I grab some chocolate, peanuts, and eat and get sugar going. You know, Coke, caffeine, coffee, everything just to get going. And so it's very difficult. The first year. And the second year, I think I missed 3 days, maybe.
Oh, okay.
6 days.
Or 6 days. Yeah,
First fasting,
not so good.
you succeed for 1 day. I didn't say about the miss one. I say you succeed for 1 day in a month.
Yeah.
Second year,
Maybe,
More.
you miss only 3 days.
Well,
no.
Or-
It's like,
I missed a few days. That's
Okay.
all I can say. I missed a few days, but every year I kept getting better.
Improve,
Yeah,
getting improved.
yeah, improving and then eventually I just got it and just missed 1 or 2 days, and then finally finally full.
Finally, after how many years? You got the full
I have to ask
fasting
my
month.
wife.
I always put note, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in the
every
book.
Year, so for the last 5 or 6 years, maybe I'm always full, and sometimes he compete with my brother.
I see.
And then,
Masya Allah.
well, he experienced at the beginning his Ramadan during the summertime.
But 18 hours is very difficult.
Yes.
Here,
Yes.
he feel like, oh, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
Yes,
So how do you feel first fasting in Indonesia?
it's easier.
Much easier.
Much easier. Much easier.
And the
Yeah.
food also
Good.
very easy to find.
Again, there's
The halal food.
more halal food than
Yes.
not halal.
Yes.
And you know, but that's a completely separate thing, a separate subject. But that was my first difficulty as a new Muslim. You know,
Not so lot, but
Huh?
yeah, the difficulty is puasa.
Puasa.
So it's fine.
Okay.
you know,
Salat is not the difficult thing.
well, eventually it's like I practice and make mistakes and learn. It's a process for all these things. Again, I'm already old. And it's not something I grew up with. It's not a tradition. It's not something like it's already formed for me as in my brain. Sometimes the salat time, it's like, oh yeah. It's a learning process, and then you get the Quran app. Oh, you got to find the good Quran app and the Azan app. And
What year you took Shahada?
I think it was
2000?
10 years ago, I think.
Or more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
In US, what is the longest time for fasting? 18 or 20?
18.
Not 20.
18 or 19 hours.
18. But in Alaska, maybe
20?
longer, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
No, I cannot imagine. Yeah.
imagine
20 fasting. When we just start breaking our fasting, then Isha time, then sahur.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, in the U.S. sometimes sahur is between 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And then sometimes, you know, breaking your fast is not till 9 p.m. or not even 9:30 p.m.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But
And
during the winter time, it's good. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah, it's easier.
I see. What time is the Fajr time in the US? The
It's
Fajr time.
Around 5 a.m. I think.
Well, that's some time. It depends.
Yeah, it
Winter?
depends.
Winter is earlier.
Oh yeah.
It keeps changing.
Okay.
It keeps changing. Yeah.
Ya tuh Pak pemirsa ya, kasihan ya kalau ngeliat mualaf di Amerika ya.
So now maybe people have a little compassion and understanding why it was difficult for me to do my full puasa. It took time to adjust my cravings.
Yeah.
So and there's so many other things too. It's you embrace Islam and you see what you're supposed to do, the rules, and then
Azan itu?
yeah,
Azan ya?
you want to.
Can we break?
We can break. Yeah,
we can break
we can
for
break.
Asar.
Yeah.
We can continue after that. Ya, Bismillah. Alhamdulillah kita lanjut ya dengan Pak Tom. Tadi kita sudah sholat asar, alhamdulillah. Jadi tadi kita sudah mendengar kisah dari Mr. Tom ya berarti ya baru
Ya, benar.
panggilnya Mr. No Ustadz, no Ustadz.
No, because then people assume I'm high level in knowledge and practice.
It's a prayer for you actually.
Yeah.
It's a prayer for you. Ya, jadi tadi Mr. Tom sudah menceritakan kisahnya dari kecil sampai usia 40-an beliau seorang ateis, kemudian bertemu dengan teman-teman dan akhirnya bertemu dengan istrinya muslim. Akhirnya beliau memeluk Islam, dan tadi beliau sudah menceritakan ya bagaimana kesulitan beliau pada waktu mulai menjalankan Islam di negara yang minoritas Islam. Salah satu yang paling berat buat beliau adalah masalah puasa ya tadi ya. Kasihan juga ya, berarti udah puasanya lama, banyak bolong-bolong, karena makanan juga susah ya kan ya. Ya, kita sekarang ini mau lanjut. Next, what is your
There's an endless list of difficulties as a new revert. And another one would be my clothing. My outfit, my clothing. Because these are things just like women, they have their wardrobe.
Yes.
And when you revert, some of it is not Sharia compliant. It's not permissible. And for men, that applies to me with my shorts. My interpretation of the Islamic guide for men's clothing is that your pants should come down to your knee area.
Yeah.
And my shorts were generally well above that.
Much shorter.
Well, not shorts, but they were obviously not Sharia compliant.
Okay.
And I'm a tall guy, and so for me to find shorts that were that long is not easy. And on a hot summer day in America, and you want to be in the backyard doing gardening or something, it's normal to wear shorts.
Okay.
Because the long pants in America that people wear are like blue jeans, except the American version is usually very heavy, very heavy material. And that's what I had. I had a lot of blue jeans, Levi blue jeans. And
but at the time, you understand that you cannot wear a short.
Yes.
Upper the knees.
Yeah, to the knee area.
Who said that?
Well, it's in the Quran.
No, I mean, if you wear the short inside your house, then what's the problem?
Not in, yeah, we're not talking about inside, about outside in the yard.
Or if you go outside.
Yeah.
But if you go to your backyard, you don't need to wear the long shorts.
Yeah. Well, that's when you start.
And your neighbor can see.
Oh, your neighbor can see.
That's when my wife would say, "Oh, our neighbor can see you. Don't wear shorts." Well, again, this is part of the difficulty. Even though it's much easier for men, it's one of the things I experienced as a big change in my life. And then, in addition, we used to take holiday and go to the beach on holiday. And now, what should I wear to the beach?
Short.
But my shorts
But
are
under your knees.
yeah. But the problem is, at least in America, that's not the fashion.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to find something like that.
No. Most rappers, rappers, they use the long short.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying that
He's not a rapper.
You wear a long short and then you wear the hat like this.
I don't have a custom
Become a
designer.
rapper.
I don't have a custom designer on my table.
Yeah.
So I just go to the regular clothing store, and what they have is what I get to choose from. So that was again another difficulty. Where I'm already older, but still, it's one of these things. Oh, I can't go to the beach. I can't go swimming because I have difficulty finding the right outfit, even though it's something small like shorts.
Yeah.
And you add these things up, and it becomes a totally different lifestyle you start to lead.
But how do you see the clothing from Saudi Arabia? I mean, we as Muslim, do we have to follow the clothing fashion from the Saudi Arabia as a Muslim?
Yeah, no, because their clothing in Saudi is a lot of it's cultural.
Yes.
Just like you go to different other countries in the Middle East or surrounding areas around the Middle East, the clothing changes, the outfits, the styles, the hats, everything changes.
Following the territory.
Even, in Indonesia, it's very common for men to wear, what do you call that?
Peci.
Kopia. Yeah, but when I was in America and there was somebody wearing an Indonesian kopia, there was somebody from Afghanistan or Pakistan who saw that and thought it was something from the devil. No, they don't. There's a misunderstanding around the world where they think that their outfits, their clothing, is the correct Muslim clothing. Actually, the correct clothing is not a style; it's just a requirement in the Quran. It puts it out what it's supposed to be. It's somewhat obvious. There is some debate concerning the hadith about mostly about women's fashion, what they're exposed, how much face and hands.
What is the aura?
Yeah, and all that. So that gets into some controversial details, which I don't like to get into. I like something that's really concrete and not subject to interpretation. Some people, they interpret some of the observations of our prophet, peace be upon him, and maybe it's a correct interpretation, maybe it's not. I like to stick to something firm, something that is not subject to interpretation. Otherwise, if you want to follow it, that's up to you, but don't impose your interpretation to me on something that's vague. So yeah, clothing became an issue also. Other things.
Then how you overcome?
I never did. I never did. Even to this day, it's still difficult for me to find short pants to the knee. On my last trip to the U.S., I found a pair. I only bought one pair. So it's now my favorite clothes.
Okay. Only your short.
Yeah. But still, I try to, dress modestly and, almost 99% of the time I always wear long pants going out, except if it's some special situation, like if I need to have a pidget. And of course you get all greasy. And so I may wear, my shorts to that. But that's kind of a special purpose, and for me, it's kind of medical. I put that to the medical category. And there's so many other things, especially in America, where there's a melting pot of Muslims from around the world.
What do you mean melting?
Melting pot. Almost everywhere America has gone or started a war or had a military base, America ends up with the refugees. Okay. So we get refugees from Iran because America got messed up with Iran.
Uh-huh.
And so we ended up with a bunch of Iranian refugees.
Mhm.
We got messed up in Iraq,
Mhm.
ended up with a bunch of Iraqi refugees, Afghanistan, and then the other places too.
Vietnam.
Yeah, but they're typically not Muslim.
Okay, no.
But
no,
my point is, we've ended up with a lot of Muslim immigrants, some refugees, Syria, yeah, and they all have different perspectives and interpretations of Islam. And when I was starting out as a new Muslim, I tried to get guidance. Reaching out, watching YouTube, trying to go to the local mosque and talk to the sheikh at the mosque, and so I try to become friends and to get knowledge, and because I'm like hungry for their opinion. It's like, am I doing something wrong? This is what I'm doing. Is it wrong? Is it right? And one of the things I experienced was all these cultural interpretations of Islam, and more than culture, it's environmental. I had this sheikh from the local mosque, and I was trying to make sure I'm doing wudu correctly, and I tell him, it's like, this is what I do at home, this is how I do it, where I do it, and then he tells me, oh, you can't do your wudu in the bathroom because there's a toilet there. And in America, they put everything together: the toilet, shower, the bathtub, the sinks. They're all in basically one area, one room.
Yeah, but the separation between toilet and
Well,
shower.
yeah, sometimes there is. Sometimes there is. And so his interpretation was, they're in the same room area, and I can't do my wudu there. And he said to me, do your wudu in the kitchen sink. Yeah, he told me to do my wudu in the kitchen sink. And I think to myself, if I put my foot in the kitchen sink, my wife is going to kill me.
He did say
No,
that.
actually, another interpretation is you can do wudu at the toilet as long as you don't move your lips when you read the basmalah.
Yeah. Well, again, this is different interpretations. I mean, I understand why they said that. I fully realize there are some things which are better. It's better to do your wudu, in an area where the toilet is separated as far as possible. Yeah, but again, I'm already living in a house. I can't just sell my house.
No, you can modify your piping so that you can have something like here, right? It's very nice.
In America, they don't have wet homes like that. And then his next suggestion was, use the outside kran, like in the yard. And it's like, well, it's I suppose I could set it up, do it that way, at least for me. But then, come the winter time and it's freezing outside, I can't do that. It becomes a health risk. And so that was their interpretation. And I do know that, Islam, it says that it's not supposed to be difficult.
Correct.
And there's that saying where you don't take the two extremes. You take the middle path.
Yes.
And
the moderate one.
Yeah. And so I try to, as my knowledge grows, I try to put it all together and not be extreme. And I learn from the hadiths, and I do the best I can. And that's, I think, a very important thing, is do the best you can. I don't think Allah is going to curse me for doing the best I can, within the situation. I make effort. And even you see my house, how I have expanded, my knowledge into a physical form of wudu separation, and so that's, again, a cultural interpretation. And it brings back one of the stories I remember, where they talk about, I guess it happened during a I guess, a battle, the aftermath of a battle. One of our prophet's companions, or one of his people in his army, he was wounded on the head. So he had a head wound. And I guess the group that was there with this wounded guy, it was Salat time, and I guess they encouraged him to do the full wudu. And the problem is he used water, and he had a head wound, became infected because of the water, and he died. And I believe at that point, our prophet, peace be upon him, said that you have to use common sense. If I can paraphrase, you have to use common sense. Doing your wudu, there are exceptions. If you have wounds, you got to use common sense. You know, so I try to apply that common sense rule to things in my life while not undoing what I call the Sharia core.
So after 10 years,
yes,
in general, how do you see Islam? Is it a difficult religion, or is a religion of logic or something like that? How do you see?
It still makes sense.
Still makes sense.
It still makes sense. You know, I'm.
But still, is it a difficult religion?
No. Well,
depends on where you see it. Yeah.
It's not a difficult religion, but you know, I myself have experienced some of the difficulties, and I've seen other people and other new Muslims experience the difficulty trying to fully implement Islam in modern society that is controlled with a non-halal financial system and non-halal governments, and you're controlled. You're a subject or a pawn in the big world. And this isn't our prophet's time when he was the imam for everybody. He was the politician for everybody. He was the general, the war general. He was the judge,
the political leader.
He was everything. And now we don't have that. We don't. You know, sadly, you know, the Muslim scholars, they just wash their hands of everything except for giving reminders to their congregation, to their followers at the mosque, giving out their Friday khutbah. It's like, I remind you, that's your responsibility now.
Yes.
But the problem is, yeah, you remind us, but who's supposed to lead us? You can't lead us from the mosque, because that's not town hall, that's not city hall, that's not the president's office. You have no power except what we give you. You know, how's he? So, you know, so we're all pawns in this big non-halal world, and that is the continuing challenge for, I think, for all Muslims, not just reverts, but for all Muslims in general.
Very nice. It's very nice to hear from you. Anything you've already told us, and I think it's already been 1 hour.
Yes.
You please, I will need some time to translate our discussion.
Yes.
You know what I mean, yeah? Because I need about the whole night to translate a video of duration 20 minutes. I need the whole night. So if 1 hour, you can calculate. Yeah, so thank you very much for your story. But I'd like you to say something for the viewers, which is Muslim and also not yet Muslim.
Well, I encourage anybody who has doubts about their religion, or perhaps lack of religion, who have seen for themselves that things in society don't make sense, that everybody follows their own nafs, their own desires, and it leads them where? Sometimes to a very bad place. And those are the things that I saw. And if anyone out there feels the same, you know, pick up a Quran, read the translation, see if it makes sense to you.
Hmm.
And inshallah, it does, and you feel something, and you become guided to the right path.
Inshallah. For the viewers that already Muslim, please you give your best khutbah for
Yes.
1 minute.
You know, when you're born Muslim,
Hmm.
I think sometimes there are things taken for granted, and I've seen that myself. And so I would encourage people that were born a Muslim to really take more time and understand your religion by reading the Quran. Actually, it's an obligation to convey the message. And if you don't understand the message, you can't convey it. Take the time to read the Quran, to be better practicing and be the best example you can to other Muslims and other non-Muslims.
Inshallah. And the best thing is to keep the taqwa.
Yes, keep the belief.
Yes. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Tom, for our nice discussion.
Thank you very much, Tony.
I hope we can meet again in the near future. Yeah, and we hope that our discussion give beneficial to the viewers.
Yes.
Ya, terima kasih banyak sekali lagi ya buat para pemirsa juga yang ingin mendukung perjuangan dakwah kami, dipersilakan untuk mengirimkan ke BSI dengan nomor 111889988 atas nama YPM At Tauhid Jakarta, dan bisa mengkonfirmasikan ke call center YPMA di nomor 0813 9883 7007. Barakallahu fikum. Semoga partisipasi para pemirsa diterima di sisi Allah Subhanahu wa taala sebagai amal jariah ya. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Baik, kalau begitu kita berjumpa kembali nanti di konten-konten kita selanjutnya yang lebih menarik lagi. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.